All right, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. That's all I get for schlepping from an hour from Muncie. How's everyone doing? Yeah. That's good to hear. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be back at Brewery High School. I haven't been here for a number of years. It's a real pleasure. And this is the entire school we're looking at over here? Yeah? This is it? That's a good crowd. Baruch Hashem, not bad. Not bad at all. I have a million things to tell you. Let me just get myself together because I have something extraordinary to share with you as well, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you. So you've been doing like a seminar this morning or something, is that right? We just had breakfast. Was there something else you were doing this morning? Discussing things, groups or something? I was told there was a certain theme to speak about, and I'm going to try to feed into today's discussion. So in case you're all wondering, we actually have a very big day tomorrow night. Yeah, we have something coming up very soon. What's that, anyone? Pesach. That's funny. There's always one funny kid. Pesach, very good. Yom Kippur, actually, yeah. Yom Kippur's coming up. So it's definitely a time of introspection. There's no doubt about it. But when it comes to self-growth, examination, and the like, we always try to pack it into this time of year, obviously. And I have so much to tell, I don't know where to begin. We'll start like this. We know we're going to be judged in about 24 hours or so. We know this is a time of judgment. A lot of our thoughts and our mental processes are on this idea and this theme. But what does that even mean? What's being judged? Why are we being judged? Is that one big deal, obviously, you have to figure out. And is there any significance to the year that just started a few days ago? 578? 6, yeah. Anything that we should be putting in our minds and downloading into our brains to help us get through this very important time. I want to share something wild. Can I share something wild with you? We'll start with this, just to get us on track. Since we're talking about years, let's start with a question. How many, and you can shout out an answer to this. If anyone gets it absolutely right, by the way, we're going to get a special prize. Not from me, from Johan Haller. How many Pesukim are there in the Torah? How many verses in the Bible? When I say the Torah, I mean the 5 books of Moses, that's Bereshit, Shemos, Vayikra, Devarim. Those 5 books. How many Pesukim, how many verses do you think there are in the Torah in total? Ever thought about that question? Interesting question. Luckily for you, I know the answer. Yeah, shout it out. Go for it. A lot. That's great. That's very good. Yeah, there are a lot. I need a number, though. It reminds me of my kids. I'm like, so what's this mitzvah all about? Why do we do this mitzvah? Because Hashem said so. I'm like, you're 24 and teaching at Frisch, honey. You have a better answer for me? Anyone else? Just throw a number out. Yeah, go on. 67,000. That would be a really, really big book. That literally would be like, wow. That's a lot. Good. But you know what? You have the courage to put your hand up. I appreciate that. Anyone else? Yeah.
Probably going to have something with like 7 or like 613.
No, none of those actually. He has got the number 7 or 613 and no. There are, just so you know, and you're going to remember this number the rest of your life now, I hope. 5,845 Pesukim in the entire Torah. 5845. Anyone from Muncie? Muncie people? What's the area code for Muncie? 845, yeah? 849, that's the number, right? So you get, now, so remember, 5,845. See, we get represented in the Torah. Okay, there is a fascinating Vilna Gaon, right? The Vilna Gaon lived a few hundred years ago, obviously. And by the way, any Jew who gets the name Gaon, genius, that wasn't his last name, right? He was Aderet, actually, was his last name. But anyone who gets the name genius attached to the name as a Jew, it's got to be smart, you know what I'm saying? Because everyone knows you as the genius. Jewish people are smart anyway. But to add the genius means this must be a really smart person. He says something fascinating. He says that each one of the Pesukim in the Torah correspond to a year. So Pasuk number 1 is year number 1. Pasuk number 2 is year number 2. Pasuk 400 is year 400. Pasuk 3000 is year 3000. Are you following? What year did we just enter a few days ago? 5786. That means there's a way to connect a certain pasuk in the Torah, which is the 5,786th pasuk in the Torah, that's connected to this year. Are you following? Now, it is interesting to say that we know that the world history as we know it can only last a maximum of 6,000 years. That is brought down in the Gemara. It's actually hinted at in the first pasuk in the Torah. The first pasuk in the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, has one letter that appears 6 times. Does anyone know which letter appears 6 times in the first pasuk of the Torah? Yeah. Aleph, very good. Aleph. Now the word Aleph, if you spell it out, Aleph Lamed Fei, also can be spelled out to mean Elef, which means 1,000. So Aleph, which is 1, equals Elef, which is 1,000. The rabbis tell us, aha. You know why? Because Hashem downloaded into the first pasuk of the Torah a maximum amount of time that the world can exist from creation, which is 6 Elef, which is 6,000. That's what the 6 Alephs represent. So the world as we know it must come to a change by year 6,000, whether we like it or not. That's not the end of the world. It's going to be a new beginning, which we refer to as Yomot HaMashiach. Mashiach must come by that time. Now that would be cool, and we could all just wait for the clock to tick out to take us to that point. But here's the interesting part. There is a prophet, and his name was Isaiah. And the prophet Isaiah tells us in chapter 6, at the end of the chapter, that Be'ito Achishena, Mashiach can come, Be'ito in his time, which most people believe to mean by year 6,000. But we have the ability, unlike all the other exiles we've been through as a people, and there have been 4 major exiles, and many, many little mini ones during the time, to Achishena, says the prophet Isaiah, to bring back the Jewish people to the land of Israel with Mashiach earlier, to expedite, to easy pass our way back in to the land of Israel. Are you following? So we know the world history can only last for how many years? 6,000 years, and then Mashiach must come. But we have the ability, unlike all the previous galut, exiles we went through, right? We've been through a number of exiles. The first exile was called Bavel. That was the Babylonian exile. The Jewish people were kicked out of the land of Israel, and the first temple was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. That's the Babylonian one. Then came the Persian exile, right? That's in between the first and second temple, which was at the hands of the Purim story, Achashverosh. The Jewish people were in Persia. Actually, they were in the capital of Persia for the most part, which was, what's the capital of Persia? Great Neck. After that, yes, it was Shushan. The Sephardi students get that one, right? Yeah. After that, we were in Israel, and this is important, for the third exile, which was the exile of Yavan, Greece. Now that's interesting, because we're in Israel, and yet we're in exile, which means galut, exile, doesn't just mean geographical displacement, being kicked out of your country. You can be in the land of Israel and still be in exile, which we're in right now. And the fourth and final official exile, although there is a fifth one, if we have time, we'll get to it a little bit later. That fourth exile is the exile of Edom or Romi. That's the Roman exile. That was the destruction of the second temple after the Jewish people went back. After the whole Purim story, about 33% of the Jewish people went back to build the second temple. Romans came to it later, and they destroyed that final Beit HaMikdash. Are you following? So those are the 4 exiles. So we know very clearly, and this is not an opinion, this is from the prophets right through, the Jewish people are going to return at the end of time. And we're going to come with Mashiach, and that's what we're all davening for. Half your Amida is all about this topic. Returning, Et Tzemach David, Shofar Gadol, all these brachot we say in the Amida, half of them at least, are all about us returning to Israel. We don't even think about it. But that's really what it's all about. That's what we're going to. And we are living right now, my dear friends, at a very unique time in world history. We are on the cusp, the edge of returning en masse to the land of Israel. It's coming very, very soon. Even the Goyim know it. I have a lot of videos and a book on Mashiach most of my emails and messages, which I get all the time, are from non-Jewish people. They have more fascination in this topic than we have, which is a shame because it comes from our Torah. It's our Torah that's telling us this. We are the ones who want the Geula, the redemption. I get a lot of messages from a lot of people. Right? When you're out there a little bit on social media and YouTube, I get a lot of messages. They're obsessed with this topic. It's a great shame because it belongs to us. I mean, probably shouldn't mention this, but I get a lot of messages from people who think they're Mashiach. Did you know such a thing? It's called Messianic complex. You'll be surprised how many people, it's going to sound weird, but I'll give you a little insight as well. You're old enough to appreciate this. How many people out there, there are thousands and thousands of them, who have this, well, it's actually delusions of grandeur, that they think they're Mashiach. And I used to think they're crazy, these people. I've met a few of them, and I've spoken to them. It's fascinating, you know. And I said to one of them who was back on her meds, I said, but what is this idea that you think you're Mashiach? And I'm not making fun, I'm really not. And she said to me, I know it sounds weird. I know it sounds weird that all these people reach out to you. I probably get more messages from these people than anyone else in America. Maybe not in Israel, but definitely in America. I know it sounds weird that we think we're Mashiach, but she says, don't you as a Jew believe that everyone has a little bit of Mashiach, a little bit of Geula inside of them as well? I said, when you put it like that, it makes a little bit of sense. Don't you always wonder, she said to me, why people love these like hero movies, where there's always one person with an incredible power that saves the world? Don't you want to do that? I'm like, yeah. Don't you want to be the one who could be the cause of redemption? It kind of makes sense. But I'd like to point out, as I pointed out to her and all of you, you don't want to be Mashiach. It's an extremely difficult job. I mean, just going on vacation with 5 Jews is a complete nightmare, you know what I'm saying? Just flying with your family to Israel. Imagine leading thousands and thousands of Jews and going to war, because war is a big part of the pre-messianic drama. So all of this has major, major implications for us, because we're in the midst of it right now. That's our generation. For whatever reason, Hashem decided that all of you and me should be alive in this pre-messianic era, when this change, this shift is happening, where we're all feeling that the world cannot carry on as is and something big is happening. It's important. A quick joke, which I got to tell at this time. It's a story of a guy who walks into a mental asylum, and he sees a guy there wearing a sheet and sandals, right, wrapped around his body, and the guy's wearing a sheet over his head. And he walks over to the first guy and says, who are you? And he says, I'm Mashiach. He goes, really? Who told you? And he said, God told me. And the guy with the sheet said, I told him nothing. Okay, tell that to your mothers, I find it funny. All right, so back to our topic. I asked you earlier how many pasukim there are in the entire Torah, and you said, well, you didn't know, 5,845. You can remember that, right? Monsey people, fabulous. Okay, so that's how many there are. And then we said the Vilna Gaon says you can look at each pasuk, and the pasuk that reflects that connects to that particular year reflects what's going on in the world. All right? What would you do if I told you that I found the pasukim that correspond to the last 5 years? It's not difficult to do. It took me like an hour or so, and I numbered it, and I found the exact pasukim. And what if I told you that last year's pasuk, but anyone know which parsha we're in? So obviously we're near the end of the Torah, because there's 5845 of the Torah. We're 5786. So we're definitely near the end of the Torah. So that means the pasukim that correspond to this year, last year, next year, and going on is Parshas. And I'll take a guess. Who said that? What did you say? Hazinu. Very good. Fabulous. A special prize for that young lady over there. Hazinu is correct. We're in Parshas Hazinu. You're following me? Hazinu is a song. It's all about music. It's a poem. But a big chunk of it talks about the challenges the Jewish people are going to have to go through at the end of days. Pretty apropos. And I'm going to read to you last year's pasuk, that is 5785. That's 2025. And the first word in the pasuk is Hamas. Interesting. Hamas taninim yemam. That serpent's venom is their wine. We're going to be dealing with very snaky people, say the rabbis. V'rosh patanim achzar, who are very, very cruel. So it has the word Hamas in it. which is pretty wild, yeah? I mean, talking about prophecy in the Torah. And where do snakes live? Underground, in tunnels. And that's what we're going to be dealing with, say the rabbis. I will mention, this is a whole topic in and of itself. So I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm saying a lot to you, I understand. Whatever I download. As a side point, we know there's going to be a great war that the prophet Ezekiel and Zechariah speak about right before Mashiach comes. And all of you have heard of this, but you know nothing about it, because it's not really discussed in yeshiva for some very weird reason. It is called the War of Gog and Magog. You heard of it before? You've heard of it, but you have no idea what it is, right? So Gog and Magog is actually a final battle between good and evil, and Mashiach's job, not only is his job, it's the proof that he is Mashiach, is going to come forward and have to fight these battles. Now, we don't know who these nations that make up Gog and Magog are. One opinion is it's actually the entire world. Right before Mashiach comes, the entire world is going to stand and blame and hate the Jewish people. Sound familiar, right? And they're going to come against us. That's why the gematria, the numerical value of Gog and Magog, is 70. And there are 70 core nations in the entire world. So we're going to have to stand against the United Nations, that's 70 of them, and basically try very hard to fight them off. I know it's frightening what you're seeing in the world, all the anti-Semitism, but it was all predicted. It's all from Hashem. And we're dealing with it right now. And actually the verses in Ezekiel tell us the names of the nations that make up Gog and Magog. Now, most of them we don't know who they are. Right? There's Cush and there's we don't know who they are, these nations. They exist, but we're not sure who they are today. But we do know who one of them is. Because there's one nation, it's actually the first nation that's mentioned, that represents the head of Gog and Magog. And that is Paras, Persia, modern-day Iran. It's right there. I'm not making it up. In black and white, you look inside. The prophet speaks about it and says at the end of days, these nations, Gog and Magog, are going to come and we're going to face a challenge, says the prophet. And Paras is going to be number one. It's all from me, says Hashem. That's why it's in the prophets. If it wasn't from Hashem, you wouldn't have to put it in there. You should know that what we're dealing with has been spoken about for thousands of years, and this is what's happening right now. So that was last year, Hamas. What's very interesting is 2 years ago, the word Hisgiram, we were closed away. They were hidden away and hidden. Hisgiram. The Jewish people would have to suffer hiding away. This year, which started a couple of weeks ago, not even, a few days ago, is unbelievable. And I'm going to read you the pasuk, and it's what's called a bitmiyah pasuk. Anyone know what a bitmiyah pasuk is? Basic English means a rhetorical question. It's a question you're not meant to answer, which is most questions in high school today. But it's a question, and it's left as a question to make you think. And this year's pasuk, which is 5786, are you following? Yeah, give me a little bit of affirmation. Thank you. This pasuk is Halo hu kamus imodi. Is it not revealed with me? Chatum b'tzaratai. There's something hidden away in my treasury. So the response to the past few verses, actually more than a few, which talk about all the challenges we happen to have gone through for the past few years, whether it corresponds to these years or not, I believe it does. According to the Vilna Gaon, it definitely does. This year's pasuk, unlike the last ones that all speak about very difficulties and challenges and dealing with snake-like people who hide away and want to bite you and cause a lot of trouble. I mean, it takes us back to the snake in Gan Eden, which epitomizes the Yetzer Hara, the Satan. This pasuk that started this year is all about something saying, don't worry. I have something very, very special, and it's in my treasure house. That's what he's saying. That's Peshat in the pasuk. Well, what's that? What does Hashem say? Don't worry. I know you've been through so much in the past few years, and all of the challenges Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's last day of life, right? He's talking to them on Zion Adar. He's about to die. Your final words of a person on their deathbed need to be listened to. You know what I'm saying? It's big stuff. So for the past few verses, he's like, yeah, I know you've been through a lot of stuff and dealing with challenges and nations who want to kill you, but don't worry, Hashem has got something in his treasure house. Anybody? What has Hashem got in his treasure house? If you think Hashem has something in a treasure house, what does he keep in it? Jewels, gems? No, I'll take an answer. Because I don't know. And I looked through commentaries, I couldn't find anything. Except one thing. I found one thing. It's actually a mitzvah that is described as a treasure that Hashem keeps in his Bet Ginzi, in his treasure house. Yeah, if you get this right, I'm going to be so impressed. Boof! Wow. That was great. You know that Chazal? Very good. I didn't know in middle school. Kol hakavod to you. What year are you in?
What year am I in?
You're which grade?
9th grade.
9th grade. I have a son in 9th grade. Believe me, he does not know that Gemara. You're absolutely right. Hashem, I think your teachers didn't know that either, but don't say anything, yeah. Hashem has something in his treasure house, and that is Shabbat. Shabbat is the most precious thing that we have. Now, I'm not just saying because, hey, you know, we're Jewish, got to keep Shabbat. Let me tell you something really important that you've got to know, which most of you did not know. Maybe you did. Each mitzvah has a purpose. And we do mitzvah because Hashem says so. But they have certain powers that come with them. Shabbat has something very unique about it. And that is, it is a Haganah. It has a protective quality. Listen very carefully. It has a protective quality to it. When I say that, I mean physically. And it goes back, says Rev. Yonasan Eibeshitz, who was this incredible thinking rabbi from a number of years ago. And he says, you know, the Jewish people were given Shabbat. And one of the first Shabbats that we had was broken. Someone broke Shabbat. One person. The Jewish people didn't complain about it, and he was punished for what he did. But right afterwards, we're attacked by Amalek. Now, if you look at those two stories in the Torah, you think, okay, we broke Shabbat, and it happens to be right afterwards we got attacked by this terrible nation called Amalek that we're still dealing with today. They're still out there. More about them in a second. Because they're also going to have a major part of the Messianic redemption. One of the jobs of Mashiach is also to wipe out Amalek. And so we're like, whatever, we broke Shabbat, and then Amalek came. He says, no, when two things appear next to each other in the Torah, they are connected, they are related. And the fact that Amalek came at that moment is because he broke Shabbat. Because Shabbat is the ultimate Haganah, protection for the Jewish people. And therefore, if you want to enjoy whatever's in Hashem's treasure house, you've got to factor Shabbat into it. And that may mean just keeping Shabbat if you don't already, but learning the laws of Shabbat that I teach at Stone College every year. I try to go through all the relevant malachot, understanding, getting more out of your Shabbat. There's always room for improvement. What we say on Shabbat, what we shouldn't say, how we enjoy it, are we utilizing it as best as we can? There's so much tucked into that mitzvah. But most importantly is he says that if you want to protect our nation physically, here in Chutz La'aretz or in Eretz Yisrael, Shabbat is the key. I'll tell you something wild over here. And with it comes a little bit of a challenge. And it goes like this. I'm cool, thanks. And it goes like this. You know, when Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, we don't do something. What is that? We don't sound the shofar. Why? It's a Torah mitzvah to sound the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. And we're like, don't worry. It's a 2-day holiday. It's a 2-day holiday even in Israel. So they get to, experience a 3-day holiday when it falls next to Shabbat at least, right? And therefore, we'll have 1 day of shofar. So the rabbis are like, that's bad. That's a big, big problem. Because what is the shofar meant to do? The shofar is meant to protect us. That sound, for whatever reason, has the ability to protect the Jewish people and wipe away our enemies in the form of the Satan. So on a year when Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, we don't sound the shofar. Why not? I mean, even this reason is wild. Because the shofar is a Torah mitzvah, but there's a problem that maybe one person will forget that it's Shabbat and they'll carry their shofar. You're telling me you got rid of an entire Torah mitzvah because one guy who maybe has to practice the shofar or forgot to bring it to synagogue and lives outside of an Eruv forgets to bring it because you're allowed to sound the shofar. It's not a malacha. So for that reason, even the possibility of breaking a rabbinic mitzvah on Shabbat is enough to push away The Torah mitzvah of sounding the shofar. It just shows you how special and how powerful it is. So wait a minute. We have a problem. Because on those years, like in 2023, the Rosh Hashanah right before October 7th, I spoke Erev Rosh Hashanah and have it on video, and I said, by the way, guys, I was speaking in Great Neck to a crowd. It was a Selichot event. And I said, this upcoming year, Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat. That means there's only one day shofar. That means we're not going to get full protection this year. But why would Hashem set it up that way? Why would Hashem set up the system? On some years, we only get one day of shofar protection. Because Shabbat is the other day. And Shabbat itself has its own protective quality. But if we don't keep Shabbat, and we don't appreciate it and don't spread it, it could end up being a big problem. But if we do keep Shabbat, it could be an amazing thing. So I said at that time, this upcoming year could either be, and it's not me saying it, Chazal tell us, could be the most amazing redemptive quality year, or, chas v'shalom, we could have major challenges this year. Little did I know, a couple of weeks later, we had October 7th. I tell you, I've not been in Israel for Sukkot in like 35 years. We're always at home. We have a big sukkah. We just increased the size. We have a lot of guests come in, a lot of friends and family, and we make it a big event in my sukkah. I said to my wife, that Rosh Hashanah, I need to be in Israel this sukkah. I had one or two daughters in Ma'or at the time. So I said, okay, well, I want to be there. But I said, I need to be in the land of Israel this sukkah. She's like, what are you talking about? We don't have tickets. We're not going to stay. I'm saying, I don't know why we need to be there. I just felt it. I just knew something was going to happen. I had a major feeling. When you have these feelings, don't always dismiss them. We went out. I was a rabbi on a program in Yerushalayim. Happens to be that the war broke out, and my hotel was right next to where all the soldiers were leaving from. It was right next to the Tachana Merkazit, the central bus station. And we were able to bring them food and water, brought a Torah. We sang with them, we danced with them, we donated blood. It was an incredible experience. A terrifying one. Terrifying. I still have PTSD. It really just, the things we saw and heard were... So Shabbat comes with a purpose. I will tell you, this year Rosh Hashanah did not fall on Shabbat, as you know. But next year it does. So what I've been doing, I've made a commitment. The entire year, I'm going to try to spread the idea of Shabbat, because we're going to have the same challenge. Right? Next Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, if I'm not mistaken. And therefore we're going to have to do something and build up to say, well, you know what? Only one day of shofar. I need to have at least the Haganah, the protection that comes with Shabbat itself. Because that's what Hashem says. That's what's special Matana Tova. And I keep Shabbat in my treasure house. And that's this year. It's like Hashem is like telling us, look at the pasuk for this year. Well, the Vilna Gaon at least is telling us. Look at it. Go into my treasure house. You're going to need Shabbat. You're going to have to spread it. You're going to have to learn it. Try every week just to go through a couple of halachot. It's good stuff. You're keeping Shabbat anyway. Right? You're flying anyway. You might as well get miles. You know what I'm saying? If you're going through it, we're definitely not maximizing the power of this particular mitzvah. I was told to mention, and it fits in quite nicely, a pasuk of the Torah, which is a very weird, unusual verse, which is hard to fully understand, but the Ramban gives us understanding. And that is, we're told to do what is tov yashar, good and straight in Hashem's eyes, b'nei Hashem. That's what we're told to do. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says you've got to do what's good and straight in Hashem's eyes. Very strange pasuk. What's the Torah telling us? What's Moshe Rabbeinu saying? Don't forget! Do what is good and straight in Hashem's eyes. Says the Ramban. This verse, this pasuk, is not talking about doing mitzvah. Because all the preceding pasukim are, say, do mitzvah. So what's this verse adding to the list of things we should or should not be doing? And he gives what's considered to be a really famous but fascinating answer. He says, there's a special mitzvah to do what is good and straight in the Einei Hashem, in God's eyes. And that is, have common sense, says the Ramban, Nachmanides. Have common sense. We all know we should do mitzvah. But the Torah and even the Gemara can't list every single scenario that all of us are going to find ourselves in at every minute of every day. So the Torah can only help you so far. At some point, you've got to have the 614th commandment. What's that? Have common sense. Think about people. Think about what they want. Think about what you can do for them. It's actually not 614. It's actually one of the 613 mitzvot according to the Ramban. That is just to think about your friends. Think about scenarios. Think how you could treat them. Maybe I should get angry. Maybe I should move out. Maybe I should be helping people. All of this is so, so important. And so our judgment on Yom Kippur is going to be based upon how we do mitzvot between us and Hashem, bein Adam lamakom. But there's no doubt about it, and all the rabbis seem to be focused on this, and that is how we treat each other is going to be more important. Our judgment with God. This is a very Jewish concept. The religions don't have this. Lahavdil. Our judgment between us and Hashem is dependent upon how we treat each other. You can get away, and this is good news, trust me, I'm a rabbi. You can get away with a lot of garbage between you and Hashem, a lot of mistakes, as long as you have in mind that I'm going to try to improve my relationships with other people. And that's why Yom Kippur can wipe away all of the mitzvot, bein Adam lamakom. But when it comes to between you and each other, that's kind of on you. And that's left in our hands. And by the way, that's actually way, way more difficult. And that's what the Ramban is saying. Do what is good and straight is it between you and Hashem. That's the idea of mitzvot. It's about scenarios where you have to do what you need to do between us and each other. How long do I have? Do you have another 5 minutes? Can I handle? Yeah, you cool? Good? Okay, fine. I got so much more to tell you. Let me share with you an unbelievable piece of Torah, which, again, I wish I would have learned this in yeshiva. I went to yeshiva, a very, very Haredi yeshiva. I was kicked out, but that's not the point. The point is that when I was in yeshiva, especially the more Haredi ones, they don't really teach you about Mashiach. And I'm not Chabad, by the way. People think it's a Chabad, a Lubavitch topic. It's not. Right? This is mainstream Judaism 101. The Rambam speaks about, actually the Rambam, this is pretty wild, is the only person, the only rabbi in world history who gave us Hilchot Mashiach. Isn't that crazy? The laws of Mashiach. What are the laws of Mashiach? The laws of how to find Mashiach, what his qualifications are, what his missions are. There's a lot. So he's the one who comes forward and gives us that. In yeshiva, they don't talk about it. I think, and I'm speaking to you candidly because, this is a high school. I think one of the reasons a lot of the more religious yeshivas don't talk about Mashiach, and I've heard this on authority, is because all the stuff comes from Tanakh, because Tanakh speaks a lot about Mashiach. I mean, every prophet in the books of the prophets are only still there today and weren't discarded over history because they have something to say about Mashiach's arrival. There were many, many more prophets. The Gemara tells us there were 1 million prophets in Jewish history, but we don't need them because their prophecies came and go and went. So they're not needed. If a prophet spoke about something in a year's time, it didn't need to be canonized, put inside Tanakh. So the ones we have are something to say about the end of days. All that action takes place in and around Yerushalayim and in Eretz Yisrael. So I think a lot of places are scared to talk about Mashiach, although in the past 4 or 5 years, it's become a lot more. I wrote a book about 4 or 5 years ago, called The Future, about Mashiach, and we did pretty well. I sold maybe, 500, 600 copies. For a Jewish book is, pretty average nowadays. There's so many of them, October 7th happened, sold out again at thousands and thousands. People are understanding this. Something big is happening. They need an understanding. And it's a mitzvah to delve into this. So the Rambam is the only person, weirdly enough, who gave us the laws of Mashiach. No one else has done that. Where does he discuss, what chapter of the Mishnah Torah does he discuss the laws of Mashiach? And you can look it up. It's available in the English. Laws of kings. Because Mashiach is going to be a king, a person, a physical being. Man, flesh and blood. And there's only one coming. Although I get messages every day from so many people. Second coming. This is not a Jewish concept. It's complete nonsense, drivel, garbage. We're still waiting for the first coming. You'll know Mashiach has come because one of the main features of Mashiach's arrival is there's no more war. Any wars in the world today? How many wars are there in the world today? Right now, actively accepted, about 30, 35 wars. I mean, you only hear about one, Israel and Palestine, because that's all, no Jews, no news, right? Make no mistake. There's tons of them. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people being killed throughout the world, unfortunately, through war. Lo aleinu. And yet they just speak about us, like ours is the only one in the entire world. So all the UN condemnations come against us. That's because it's Jews. Jews equals news. It's just the way it's always been. And weirdly enough, it's the way it should be. There's a special microscope, lens on the Jewish people specifically, especially the land of Israel. Because as we say, Hashem's eyes are on the land of Israel, Mereshit Hashanah, Ad Achrit Hashanah, says Moshe Rabbeinu in the Torah. The Jewish people, especially the land of Israel, have Hashem's eyes on them the entire year. So we're always going to be page 1 of the New York Times. Don't read it. But we're always going to be the front page of every paper. That's just the way it's always going to be. So thousands of people could be killed elsewhere in other wars. Lo ma'nyan oti. Doesn't interest me. This is what stands out. With that in mind, I'm going to finish with this. I want to read to you, nothing Kabbalistic, although I could if you want, but we'll save that for another time. I want to read something which is a Mishnah. A Mishnah, right? You know Mishnah, the oral Torah, first to be written down. And the Mishnah is at the end of Tractate Sota. Sota. Now, I would have thought a Mishnah. Most Mishnahs follow a certain pattern, right? They're in Hebrew, right? And they tell us about laws and other ideas. But did you know there's a Mishnah that discusses what the world is going to be like right before Mashiach's arrival? And as I can't go into too much detail to prove, but I could prove to you very clearly that the generation we're in right now, that Hashem elected all of us to be alive in, is right now. We're in the pre-messianic era. I'm going to read to you part of this Mishnah. Okay? And you can look it up yourselves, so you're not making it up. The first couple of words say a lot. Be'ikvot Mashiach. Again, it's very weird. The Mishnah doesn't usually do this. This stands out. And why it's in Tractate Sota, we'll have a discussion later on. You can think about. The footsteps of Mashiach. You know this expression? Akev, Ikvasei de Mashiach. It's a rabbinic term. It doesn't appear in the Torah or Tanakh as far as I know. It's a rabbinic term called the heels of Mashiach, which means right before Mashiach comes. Because when you hear, basically, usually translate it as the footsteps of Mashiach. Right before Mashiach comes, we're going to see a number of things that are going to be happening in the world. I'm going to run through, it's a checklist, a Mishnah checklist. Very unusual. Akev. By the way, you know there's a parish called Akev, because Akev is all about the heel. Certain mitzvot that we crush with our heel that don't mean too much, unfortunately, to us, because they seem very, very simple. So we'll leave that aside. I'll just plant that into your heads. So the Mishnah says, right before Mashiach comes, chutzpah yiskeh. There's going to be a lot of chutzpah in the world. People are going to be very, very, as your parents always say to you, you're very chutzpahdik. Had I spoken that way to my parents, I would have got a lot. Right? Come on. You've heard that 1,000 times, right? I know, because I'm blessed with 5 kids, 4 daughters. That's what I'll ever tell them. You got a lot of chutzpah. Oh, Abba. Chutzpah yiskeh. All your teachers are like, I could stop the mission right there. Dayenu. We could all walk out and go home. The amount of chutzpah before Mashiach comes, says the mission is going to be unbelievable. V'yoker ya'amir. We're going to see that expenses are going to rise. A lot of expenses, financial expenses. Hagefen titempiri v'yam b'yoker. There's going to be a lot of expensive wine. That's what I need to know. Says one of the amazing commentators, the Tiferet Yisrael. What the Mishnah is saying, before Mashiach comes, there's going to be such a lack of spirituality, or a search for it, such a void in most people's lives, that they're going to turn to wine, alcohol, and I'm going to add drugs, because, it's a go-to term, right before Mashiach comes. People are going to be searching, stuck in these terrible situations. The only satisfaction they're going to have is by taking drugs. That's what Tiferet Yisrael says. That's what it means, a lot of wine. We're going to see governments are going to be completely irreligious. It used to be that most governments of the world, most kings and queens were very religious people. Okay, maybe they weren't in favor of our religion, right? And maybe they wanted to kill us because we weren't there, but they believed in God. They were ma'aminim. Mashiach is saying you're going to see, and the prophet Joel speaks about this, and Daniel references it. Daniel the prophet, a lot about him, but not for now, that we're going to see a lot of atheism in the world, which didn't exist beforehand. All of this, just so you understand, just download this following idea, is going to be the breakdown of an old order that is going to be replaced by a new Mashiach reality. Are you understanding what I'm saying? If you've been asleep up to now, please wake up, listen to these words. We are seeing the last throes of an old world and a new world where Mashiach is going to be the beginning of that, but it's not just about him, it's about the entire world. We talk about Mashiach coming, it's not one person who becomes a king in the land of Israel. It's a complete change. Everything that we know is going to be completely turned on its head. There has to be a breakdown of it. So atheism, for some reason, people are not going to rebuke these individuals. Beit vad liznut, study where people study, place where people study, we used to be places where people study, and grew as people, is going to be used for sexual immorality. Read what it says. Vahagalil, the north of Israel, Yecharav, is going to be destroyed. Right, north of Israel, Lebanon. And listen to this. Va'anshe gvul, and people who live on the borders of Israel, because now we're focusing on Israel, Yisavavu me'ir le'ir, are going to end up having to leave their homes and have to travel around the country. Ve'en, and no one is going to give them chananenu, going to take care of them. Right? Which we're living in right now. First of all, we have possession of the land of Israel, which we haven't had for 2,000 years. The north of Israel is going to be attacked. The borders, people are going to have to move inland because they're being attacked from all sides, especially from the western side, Gaza. So all of this is spoken about. Chachmat Sofrim Tisrach. Hold on, there's a punchline to this entire story. So hold on. The wisdom of smart people is going to decrease. Tisrach is going to disappear. People are going to be idiots. That's the Mishnah's way of saying it in a very nice way. But I can say the reality. People who fear sin, this is important to our generation. Okay? People who fear sin, yimasu, are going to be hated. If you say, yeah, I keep Shabbat, I keep kosher, right, I try to do mitzvah, used to people like, oh, that's impressive. Now, what is that? What, the Middle Ages? Didn't used to be that way. People used to respect observant people, Jewish and non-Jewish. Now, if you just say I'm a believer in God, like, come on, that's so 1585, you know what I'm saying? The Mishnah is saying, yeah, there's going to be pockets of truth. It's going to be very hard to find truth in the world before Mashiach comes. You're going to have to dig very deep to find pockets of truth that exist in the world. And in our generation, you just got to hang on. Na'arim penei zakenim yalbinu. Young people are going to embarrass older people. It's going to make their faces turn white from embarrassment. Zakenim yamdu b'pnei ketanim. Old people are going to stand for young people, which is nahafako, the other way around. Used to be the young people, when an old person walks in, right? But you're going to stand up for them. So no. It's an upside down world. Olam hafuch. Old people are going to have to show respect for the young, I hate using this word, but I'm going to have to use it, influencers. Going to give them all the respect. Upside down world where old people are, they're old, what do they know? There's a lot more to say on that, because the speed up of the world and technology before Mashiach comes, old people become obsolete. And for us, the Jewish people, the Torah way of thinking, old people are the treasure house of wisdom. But we already said there's going to be a lack of wisdom in the entire world. Bat kama be'ima, a daughter is going to rise against her mother. The next part I don't understand. The ima bakala, a daughter-in-law is going to hate her mother-in-law. Ladies at the back, I have no idea what that's talking about. I'm just reading what it says. How anyone could not like their mother-in-law makes no sense to me whatsoever. But that's what the Mishnah says. There's going to be, jokes aside, there's going to be a separation between generations. And people are going to be rebelling against their elders right before Mashiach comes. And then the most famous verse, which some of you may have heard. Penei hador, penei hakelev. The face of the generation has the face of a dog. Now, sounds like an insult. Face the generation, face of a dog. What, we're going to look like our dogs? According to Rosh, yeah. People are going to start looking like their own dogs. You ever seen that? You ever walk down the street, right, and look at a person's face, and look at their dog, look at the face like, it's uncanny. It's exactly the same. Same floppy ears, same weird hair, same wet nose. It's the same thing. That's why at the end of every class, when I mention this idea, there's always one girl runs over to me, but Rabbi, you're going to meet my dog. Right? People, for some reason, always want to see a picture of their dog on their phone through a cracked screen. The screen's always cracked. So there's got to be a cracked screen. Right? I'm like, I don't want to look at your dog through a cracked. I don't want to look at your dog at all, to be honest with you. I don't mind them. Rashi says people are going to act like they're dogs. What do dogs do? Whatever they want. Where? Wherever they want. In the public domain. Things that people used to do privately before Mashiach comes, they're going to do publicly. Things you used to hide in your diary, and if you had like a diary with a lock on it, you would hide it away. Now I'm going to put it online, and if you don't read my diary online, I hate you. This is exactly what we're dealing with. There's no privacy. People are public about all their sick and twisted habits that I really don't want to know. That's one answer. There's a very, very famous idea of face the generation as a face of a dog. The one girl said to me, is that why people always put dog filters on their faces? It could be. Or it could be their nuts. I don't even know. Rav Salanta mentions that before Mashiach comes, people are going to act like a dog. What does that mean? You ever seen a dog walk with their master? The dog is always in front. The dog always walks in front of you, right? It's on a leash. If it's not on a leash, it just runs ahead. And if you were to see that scene, you would think the dog is in charge, that the dog is leading the master. But as soon as the master makes a left turn, what does the dog do? It turns its face and doubles back and follows. Now you know who's really in charge. Same thing. The face of generation means the leaders of the generation, because they're the face, the influencers, people who influence the world. Those people you think are in charge. But actually they're just following the masters. Whatever the people want, we'll give them. Whatever you want to say, we'll do for you. A world where people have no real morals or ethics. A world where someone says white is black, black is white, yellow is green when it's not. That's the way it's going to be. That's a man. That's not a man. We're telling you that's a man. That's what everyone says. We agree with them. And that's a woman. Are you sure? Yeah. No morals, just whatever it is, and you have to follow what we say. Because there's no truth anymore. It's whatever your truth is. That's not the way the Torah looks at life. That is not the way a Jewish head has to think. And it carries on and says that we're going to see more challenge between generations. Here's the punchline, and we'll finish with this. The Mishnah says something which I've never seen in any other Mishnah. So we've seen the breakdown of the Jewish people in the world, the breakdown of families. You can't trust your government, right? Because, you can't trust your family because, what do they know? Right? You can't trust your friends. You can't trust your rabbis. Right? There's no more wisdom. So who's left? Hashem, that's it. And that's how the Mishnah ends. Who can we rely upon? Ela al Avinu B'Shamayim. Hashem is stripping away everything that we've relied upon for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Hashem's like, enough of that. Don't trust your government. Don't trust your rabbis half the time. You've got to find your own emunah in Hashem. And emunah, faith, is the key to help us get through this period. If you want to know what the challenge of our parents and our grandparents, Holocaust, exiles, whether from the Middle East, right? Many of your families had to escape from their lives from Persia or Morocco or Yemen. Or your family had to get out of Europe if they were able to get out, like my wife's family. Out of all her family, one got out. And that's it, from hundreds of from the Holocaust. That was their challenge. What's our challenge? Well, physical battles too. But for most of us, it's emunah, faith. And there's no better way to build faith than Shabbat. That's why Hashem says, go into my storehouse. You're going to need this. You're going to have to become a believing, how to become a believing Jew. Study, pray, good. But if you don't have Shabbat in your life, forget about it. We are the generation that just needs to hold on with emunah. That is the pre-messianic era. To get through this, you need to have faith, because most of the world does not have faith. They don't even believe in themselves. Friends, it's been a pleasure. I hope some of my words have been accepted by you. God willing, we'll see a complete redemption of Geula. We'll all be able to return together safely to the land of Israel, God willing. All of the hostages can go back very, very soon. I think this year we're going to see big positive changes after a number of years of challenge. And B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to celebrate with the real Mashiach in Eretz Yisrael, with a Beit HaMikdash on Har HaBayit, Bekarav Bimhira V'Yamei Amen. Thank you all very, very much for being here.
Ordered for you. Unfortunately, the delivery never came. So I want you to thank her for doing everything she possibly could to make it happen. It'll come later in the day. So right now, just take a break, stretch your legs, and at 10:30, we're going to come back into the center of the room for Comes This to bring it all together.
About 7 minutes, ladies. 7 minutes.
Yours.
Thank you so much.